time and space.
Yeah, that's weird, right? Like, I don't know. But like, I was also thinking about like, how did God separate the darkness from the light? Like, he let the darkness be there. Like, did he like, was there like dusk or something with like how he managed the light that he had? Like, it's interesting to think about. But like, regardless, there's like already an order set. So, um, but what I
Yeah,
think,
that is weird to think
but what
about.
I think is more interesting is actually verse 6, and mainly because of how it has to do with like the flood and long life. So it says, "And God said, Let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water." And then it says, "So God made the vault and separated water under the vault from the water above it. And God called the vault sky, and there was evening and morning on the second day." And I'm going to read next real quick. "And God said, Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." So, like, before that, though, it mentions, like, the word firmament, right? So that would mean that, like, in a huge area in the atmosphere, there's, like, a water blanket over the earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that would be like enough water that would be that if released could cause a worldwide flood.
Yeah, if you think about our entire atmosphere and
Yeah,
one really, really big cloud just
right.
ready to have the biggest rainstorm possible.
Yeah, but like another thing is like there's like a it like divides the sky away, right? So this like scientifically would basically like make the earth like a global greenhouse. Like there would be like a similar temperature like all over the world. There would be no large winds and there'd be no rain, right? And then everywhere would be like tropical all over the earth with like dew and ground fog. And then another thing like is that like radiation and like rays and like destructive energies from the sky would not be able to like penetrate it, right? And like those things all cause like disease and mutations and generally decrease like the lifespans of humans. So that means like animal lifespans would be like greatly increased along with humans.
Yeah, that's true. Think about all those biologically immortal animals
Yeah.
and what that would have looked like.
But then I also
That's
think about
insane,
like
man.
how this was like a perfect world, right? And it protected these like I guess dark energies from the sky and stuff. I wonder if any of those things like have a spiritual element to them too, you know?
They had to have been.
Yeah.
There had to have been. If he was, if God,
Yeah.
um, if God was perfect, right, and he created a perfect world, that means anything that wasn't perfect wasn't there. It
Yeah.
couldn't.
Or
It
it
couldn't
couldn't
be
get in
there.
if it didn't like.
Exact. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because, like, the angels were still around. Like, although, like, the world was, like, sinless and death hadn't entered in, like, beyond the world, like, that's where Satan roamed at the time. So, it's not hard to
Hmm.
believe that that would happen. So, but yeah, then he mentions, like, the land appearing and stuff. And I'm just, like, what is it? Like, the theory is that the earth was, like, entirely water at, like, one point, or something like that.
Hmm.
And I feel like that kind of like correlates with this, even though like the time frames are way different, but kind of means something similar.
Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing about science is because we we really do have all the answers here on Earth.
Yeah,
God has given us everything we needed to know. He
yeah,
just knows that we won't figure it out
yeah,
because we're only humans. So there's always going to be something lining up with science, right?
yeah,
So the theory about mountains forming underneath a world of just ocean,
yeah.
that's it lines up with God says.
It
So
does. Yeah.
it's entirely plausible.
I'm not getting a emergency message, right? Uh. Oh, hold on. I have food ready. I'm gonna pause this real quick.
Oh, sick. The
All right.
munchies.
not like crunchy or nothing, so won't even be able to hear it. So
What we got? What we got? What we eating?
Oh, it's like chicken. So, and like it.
It looks delicious.
I know. One of those like air fryer things, you know. But
Air fryers
like,
are the best, man.
Yeah, I know, they're the best thing ever. Like, and it's weird. I never thought that like I would ever want one, but then like as soon as you're an adult, you just have a sudden urge to get one, you know.
Well, it's so much better than a microwave, and when you're living on your own and you've got to make food for yourself,
Yeah.
a microwave is so appealing. And if you got a better alternative to a microwave, so it makes sense.
So in verse 11, it also says, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants, and trees of the land, according to their kind." But like it said, this happened like before the sun, right? So God's light like is like strong enough to the point where it can actually grow plants, like without the sun being there.
Yeah, that's true, because this is happening at night, isn't it? Because it said, oh, that's so good.
You know, I feel like I believe this Genesis account much more than like the actual theory, which like I have like written here. It's basically like there's a theory about how water reached the earth, like the scientific theory. I kind of summarized it, but it goes: meteorites carrying amino acids impacted the earth at a time when the sun was cooler and the earth was a watery ball covered with ice up to 1,000 feet thick. A meteor hit the ice, broke through, and planted the water underneath with the building blocks of life that made organisms. And then this apparently happened in 10 million years or less. But the thing is that, like, no matter how complex
I've got
is,
so many questions.
Yeah, no matter how complex that is, though, like, none of it's actually been proven. Like, you know that, right? Like, it's all theory.
Absolutely. It's all theories, man. All of it.
And I actually have an interesting quote about evolution later, but... So, another thing
Go back to the...
Oh, yeah.
Just the ice thing.
Yeah, like the...
So, meteors destroyed the giant ice rink that was Earth, and then somehow streams, rivers, currents in the ocean that just developed over time.
That's weird. So, another thing is that, like, so I was actually shocked by this. I looked into, like, a couple of, like, fossil experts and stuff, and fossil evidence actually supports life exploding on Earth instead of slowly evolving, right?
There's so many animals that just couldn't exist if they just developed over time.
Yeah.
They couldn't have. The giraffe is such a popular one to use because in order for their body to have their head go under their feet to drink water, that's not something that was developed from one organism.
And it's not something that's like survival of the fittest neither, you know?
Yeah, it's a really inconvenient trait to drink water like that.
I'll let you know something. God does have a sense of humor. Like, only a God with a sense of humor would make a platypus or a giraffe or, like, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Those things are, like, interesting creatures, you know?
They're so good. And you know, that God must have been absolutely just cracking up when he made some of those turtles.
Oh, yeah.
Those freaky-looking turtles, man.
He's like, oh, I'm gonna give someone a heart attack when they see this thing for the first time.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, he knew somebody was gonna be screaming when they saw that turtle come out in front of their car.
You know what really scares me, though, is the ocean. Like, the ocean, I think, is the scariest place of all time. And there was a theory I heard about the ocean, right? So, you know how it has, like, the darkness over the surface of the waters and, like, under the water? And, like, things like the Leviathan came from the water, right? I think maybe, like, because the land was, like, you know, purified, maybe the demons, like, were involved in the water after the fall more than anywhere else.
It's possible. It's really possible because
like,
they're
even then,
so
Satan, like, it's like believed that Satan is the one who caused the storm upon the Sea of Galilee when Jesus was trying to get to the other side. So, you know, because otherwise the sea was perfectly calm and that storm just happened out of nowhere, and the panic that the disciples had, right? And they were fishermen all their lives, right? The panic they had at that storm is unnatural, right? So I think that definitely, like, satanic, like, and spirits and stuff like that definitely have power over, like, the natural environment. Like, maybe hurricanes or other things like that. Now, I'm not saying every hurricane is because of that. Like, there are natural explanations for hurricanes. But I do think that they have the ability to create supernatural things with, like, the ocean, you know?
No, that's a really good point because I think a lot of Christians just like to think that God created that storm so that Jesus could show how powerful he was. Right. When God performs a miracle, he always like took credit for it.
Yeah.
there was always an explanation to why he did
Jesus
it. It wasn't just
storm, like,
Jesus overcoming it.
Yeah, and Jesus rebuked it. He didn't just overcome it. He rebuked it like it had a personality, you know?
Exactly. That's the big thing because Jesus stopped the storm.
Yeah.
He listened to his dad all the time. His father, God, he listened to him every single time. To the time of his death, even when he was terrified and super under pressure,
and
he listened to him.
Immediately after they crossed the sea, they encountered a demon-possessed man that Jesus healed, and then who told everybody in an area that would have likely never been reached by him. He went and told everyone about him in an area that wasn't, like, Israel. So, I mean, Satan would have a good reason to try to want to stop, to want to try to stop him there, more than anywhere else.
Yeah, he thought he had it.
Yeah.
little corner of society.
I noticed that, like, all throughout Genesis, it says, like, according to its kind, right? And that phrase, like, appears 10 times. So, like, I think about that, and I'm like, God, like, of course God would allow, like, variation within a kind, right? But, like, something of one kind can't develop into, like, another kind, right?
That is the big thing that differentiates evolution from creationism. You've got certain types of things that can't come from other things, right? You've got categories and specifics for plants and vegetation, let alone other living things, you know?
And then another thing is, like, the first thing God calls good is where the animals are made, right? So I think it's interesting that God did not call the earth, like, a good place until it became a place where man can actually live on. Right?
No, I guess it depends on the translation, but I think we've got, in verse 10.
Well, this one was, like, it translated to a different word for good, is what I meant to say. So this one was, like, pretty much like a term in Hebrew that means, like, complete good, while the other ones just mean good, like, right?
Right, and that's an important thing to try and figure out the individual words in Hebrew, because our pastor at our church loves to use love and all the different kinds of words for love,
is, like,
right?
The only one I remember because it sounds funny.
Yeah. That's the big one. That's the agape love. That's the unconditional love for no reason.
And then actually, so people apparently use, like, the thing of, like, God made every plant to, like, justify the use of drugs. But the use of drugs is, like, literally always condemned in the Bible because it's associated with, like, sorcery and the occult. So, like, in Exodus, like, improper use of drugs. Does that make sense? Like, you know.
Yeah, not medicinal.
Yeah, so, like Exodus 22:18 has it, Deuteronomy 18:10 condemns it, and in the New Testament, too, it condemns it 3 times. Or 2 times in the New Testament. Revelation 21:8 and 22:15. Like, the final, I guess the, what's the, like, Babylon, like, you know, at the end, or the personality of Babylon was, like, a sorcerer, right?
Yeah.
So that was, sorcery is mainly, like, the term for drugs, while, like, spiritism is, like, the dead, right? So spiritism is, like, the dead. Which is weird because usually people think of sorcery and they think of necromancers, right? But, like, sorcery just literally refers to, like, drug abusers, you know? in the real
Which
translations.
would have made sense because sorcery has that mystical context now,
Yeah,
and when you see some hallucinations or what you think could be another power, right?
yeah,
Just sleight of hand mixed with a little drug abuse.
right. So another thing is like that got me interested was in verse 14 it said, "And God said, let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times, days, and years." And he made the sun, but he also made the stars, right? And he said that they're like as signs, which it doesn't mean astrology. I actually looked this up because I was curious if that meant like astrology, right?
No, I think it's talking about travels, right?
Well, it's talking about like constellations, which I think is interesting, right? Because I actually looked this up, and well, the original meaning of like the zodiac is like constellations, right? So the sequence of the constellations, like between the Mayans and the people in like Mesopotamia and stuff, is actually the same. Like they all have the same names and the same designs in every language and culture on Earth. And you know what's weird? You've seen a constellation, haven't you? Like you've seen a map of constellations. It looks
Yeah,
like
I see
somebody
them.
just made that up, right? Doesn't it look like someone just made that up?
Yeah, that's, and some of them like the designs and everything.
Yeah.
I'm like, how did they get
Yeah.
a belt from that?
But like
How,
it's weird
what?
though because like all of them have the same shapes and same names originally, which means it points to like a common like pre-Tower of Babel like origin of humanity, where all the signs in the sky like have the same shapes.
Yeah, there's a um that center point in the sky,
Yeah.
right? Everybody everybody knew it somehow. It didn't come from just like one civilization happened to get it from another.
Exactly.
Everybody knew it in the beginning,
Yeah.
and that's how it spread.
Yeah. And then like one thing that's interesting is like it mentions in Isaiah that like the stars outline like God's plan of redemption, but it also calls like astrology like a corruption. So it's like a corruption of Satan that like manipulates man. So, which like listen, I'm just
I have
thinking.
so many zodiac jokes right now.
No, but here's the thing. I'm not being like racist towards my own people, but I swear it's always white women.
Oh,
And I'm just like,
it's
yeah,
it's a. I think the glorification of it right now is because a big lack of purpose. You know,
yeah,
you've got everybody getting their answers from the internet,
yeah,
and the one answer that they don't get is who they are
yeah,
and who they're supposed to be with, because that's not an answer for
yeah.
the internet to tell
Yeah.
you.
No, but like I look at
Um,
Snapchat, right? And I'm just like, dude, like they literally have an astrology system on Snapchat. Like if you go under your friends or whatever, you can like match with them, and it's weird. Because
it is really strange.
it's also
You get those
interesting
notifications.
because like I'm Taurus, like the bull, right? And I only identify with about half of the stuff on there, and like most of my friends have nothing in common with what their astrological sign says. So like when Satan uses that to like manipulate people, which I guess into thinking certain things about others, I'm just like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. Like it's totally a manipulation. There's no like actual scientific like evidence based on it at all. You know?
No, I've noticed too that the definitions for the zodiac signs
Yeah.
become more and more vague
Yeah.
every year, so that everybody's like, wait, that does sound like me. I guess this is true.
Yeah.
So it's just trying to get you little by little,
Yeah. But
becoming
like,
more
I
and
think
more vague, so
astrology
it probably
is,
applies
like,
to you.
above everything else, I feel like it's like a diversion from God, right? Like it's a form of worship that you think you can find the purpose in things through it, but it's just like a delusion, right? Like you don't find any purpose in that. But it's like a way to occupy your time, you know?
Well, I think it's just that there hasn't been a big controversy over over zodiac signs yet.
Yeah.
So it's like a safe place almost where they can believe whatever they want, and no one can say anything about it
Yeah.
because they're innocent.
And then even then though, like it came from like Zoroastrianism, right? Which is actually a Akkadian form of worship. But the thing is, Akkadians are also people who human sacrificed and stuff.
Oh
Right?
no, the origins of it are totally bad. I'm saying now.
Yeah, I know
There's
now.
no controversy of the Zodiac Church,
Yeah, but
right?
like when I bring that up to people, they're like, "Oh, I had no idea it was from an evil and depraved culture." You know, I'm just like, "Yeah,
Oh,
because
of
they don't
course
tell
they
you
wouldn't.
that." You know, but
Why would they mention that?
yeah, and then so oh yeah, so I have the stats about like the conditions it would take to like support life. So on another planet in our universe, so the chances of the exact circumstances being met on any one planet is 1 in 10 to the 42nd power.
That's a lot of zeros, man.
Yeah, and then the total number, that's a percentage too. So the total number of possible planets in our universe alone is 10 to the 22nd power.
Still a lot of zeros.
Yeah, so that's
Wonder.
like half, or like, you know, the possible planets in our universe are less, you know, than that. So
You think about, because we're so desensitized by zeros now because of
yeah,
how much of everything there is, and there's a statistic for just about
yeah,
anything. There are billions of people in the world.
mhm.
That's 9 zeros. You just you just said 20s.
And that's a percentage too.
That's the thing. There's a 1 over top of that.
Yeah, it's crazy. So that's how unlikely it is that we'll ever find aliens. You know?
That's another crazy thing to think about.
Which is why I believe
If it
UFO
was
sightings are spiritual, right? I believe they're like spiritual signs in the sky. Not good ones, but like, you know.
every time there was a sign in the sky in the Bible, everybody was pretty terrified.
Yeah, exactly. Well, some of them are from God, right? But like, obviously, like, you know, the fallen angels roam the heavens, so it's not too far to believe that they would be doing it.
Sure, and you gotta think about all the people who are just seeing things.
Yeah. But another thing, like, you know, dogs supposedly evolve faster than like other beings, right? So here's the thing, though: structure among dogs is like diverse, you know, but they're all dogs, you know. They won't become another animal no matter how much breeding you do, right? We've been breeding different types of
Yeah.
dogs for forever, and they never become another type of animal. So like that also brings me, like, I realized this. So there's like a difference between like what's called microevolution and macroevolution, right? The only kind that's been proven is microevolution, which is basically the variation of like a kind within a kind to adapt to the environment. But a macroevolution,
Galapagos.
yeah, well, a macroevolution has never been proven, like ever.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it takes so much faith, like I said, to say that a single-celled organism
yeah,
evolved over billions of years
yeah,
to create even just a worm.
yeah,
There has to be so much faith that breeding, asexual breeding,
yeah,
somehow turned into heterosexual breeding,
yeah,
which then turns into natural selection. There's so many things that are skipped over
yeah,
because they just want to say, well, everything stemmed from one thing. We have proof of some type of evolution, so this must have been what happened.
yeah,
But even I think it's more plausible from, as I at first when I heard the idea that we could have come from a type of fish,
yeah,
I was like, that's kind of crazy.
yeah,
I'd rather believe that than a single-celled organism
yeah,
that it didn't have another. Like, it was itself,
yeah.
and then it duplicated and turned into a different type of breeding halfway down
Yeah.
the road.
No, but like I think about that, right? And I'm just like, well, there aren't fish people or there aren't cat people. There's just us, you know?
Yeah, somehow they're extinct now. And the Neanderthal theory, and we
Yeah.
actually talked about this
Mhm.
the other night, where the Neanderthals just got bred out.
Yeah.
existence. Like monkeys, for example.
Yeah.
There are tons of types of monkeys.
Yeah.
There are not tons of types of people.
Mm-hmm.
So why did we come from monkeys if we only developed one kind of person?
Yeah, and even then, monkeys can do sign language, but they can't speak. None of them have been able to speak.
Yeah, we've got the perfect, like our vocal cords, our head structure.
Yeah.
It's perfect to make noise that other people can comprehend.
And even then, we're like the only beings in the world that actually have like a sense of morality or shame, you know?
Oh man, I was watching a thing on bears
Yeah.
The other day, and male bears often kill their cubs and eat them.
Oh.
Right? And mama bear though, mama bears are beasts, man. I don't know how they do it, but but the mama bear starts attacking the dad, right?
Oh my god.
And the dad finally gets a hold of the cub, and the cub dies. But the mama bear still fights the dad cub away, and the dad cub runs off without the kid.
Wow.
But then, once the mom knew the cub was dead, she ate the cub.
Jeez.
Yeah, so the idea that there's some kind of morality in an animal, it is survival of the fittest, man. You have zero moral reasoning, you have zero moral compass.
Yeah.
There's no cultural or societal impacts on your judgment.
Exactly.
It's just the cub was dead. Might as well eat it now. There's no.
Or even then, like if you die, right, and your dog like runs out of food, they'll eat you. You know?
Mm-hmm. Oh, dude, dogs are only as loyal as you let them be.
Exactly. Like, yeah. Like, okay, so another thing is actually there was Darwin's strongest opponents were actually fossil experts, right? And I actually found
he's in the science world. It's not like the people that opposed him were kooks, right?
Yeah.
They were respected people in the field.
Yeah, and a quote from him says that the state of fossil evidence was the most obvious and gravest objection which can be urged against my theory. And then every fossil expert has admitted that a species does not change into another. And Niall Eldridge is an American paleontologist who was an opponent of Darwin. And he's also someone who discovered, like, his own theory about, like, microevolution, right? Which he didn't call, like, he didn't approve Darwin's theory at all. But he did believe in microevolution, which is true. Like, you know, animals can change their fur color to adapt. But it says, we paleontologists have said that the history of life supports the story of radical evolution, or radial evolution, all while knowing that it in fact does not. Right?
Isn't it crazy? You can look this up. Just a quick game of Google search go and make sure it's a trusted script, right?
Yeah.
But just a quick search, and this information is given to you. Like, you can look it up anytime you wanted.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, if you told that to someone who doesn't think about what is being told to them, they'd be shocked.
Yeah.
You'd be like, people disprove Darwin's theory? That was a thing that happened?
And I'm just
like,
why do we teach it if it was disproven, you know? Like, I don't get it. Well, really, the reason is because of a court case that was handled terribly by an incompetent
separation of church and state. Yeah. It was. Oh, what was the name of that case? I actually just talked about it in my speech class.
I did it. I like reenacted it in my law class. So.
That's
not college. This was like a year ago. So.
Yeah, I figured it wasn't in your college class.
Yeah.
But I can't for the life of me think about who it was.
God.
But it was the. What's that?
I don't remember. That's what I was saying. I don't remember.
Yeah, man. But it was such a. I remember learning about the trial and how the lawyers involved were really trying to push the case, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they basically found clients who would sue the school for them. I don't know how true that much is, but reporters and journalists in that time
Yeah.
when the story was actually going on, they found evidence that
Yeah.
the lawyer was trying to push this case because he was really into the idea that evolutionism was real and against the fact that kids were being taught creationism in schools.
Yeah.
And he's definitely got a point because separation is an important part
Yeah.
of this country, but to choose evolutionism as
That's your, like, reasoning.
as the alternative, yeah. Because what's the theory? The intelligent design theory, where it doesn't put a name to it, right?
Yeah.
But it's still it's a theory that supports some evolution, but in order to create RNA and reproducing life,
Yeah.
you've got to have someone who knew what they were doing
Exactly.
and formulated that. But I think it's hilarious because it's like you stole that from us. That was what we said. Christians thought of that.
Yeah, so another thing was, like, you know, God says, let us make mankind in our image. He says in our image, right? So that, like, points to that there's, like, more than one, like, being within God, right? So he refers to himself in the plural. So, like,
And he does that a lot.
yeah, so, like, the Trinity, right? Like, already, in the first book, like, of the Bible, the Trinity is already there, you know? And I looked up,
God
like,
never
translations. When I
contradicts
originally was
himself.
trying to disprove the Bible, when I was, like, arrogant and didn't want to believe it, I actually tried to look up. I actually tried to look up if that was changed, like, in history, to put our image instead of, like my image. No, it wasn't. Never
Right.
changed. Yeah,
It's
crazy.
it's awesome to see. Oh, what was the? It was Joshua Gates, the guy who does Expedition Unknown.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about? There was an episode that he did about a copper tablet, because a lot of old documents, they would tap words into like copper plates, right? It was found that one of these pages, right, was a form of the Bible.
Yeah.
And oh, what did it say? It was something. It had something to do with men sleeping with men. So that's why there was a whole episode about it.
Yeah.
And when they did all the translations and they looked back at like the context of the entire page, it came out to the fact that's like, yeah, it doesn't really disprove what we thought.
No, because, like, literally I heard the classic, like, liberal, like, atheist argument I always hear is that, well, it didn't say men sleeping with men was a sin, it said men sleeping with boys, as in pedophilia. And I'm like, literally no evidence for that whatsoever. You're just making that up. It's so true. But the thing is, like, all these
I forget who said that first.
yeah,
but everybody was like, finally, something I can quote.
The thing is like, to get a paper published from a university, it doesn't have to be proven right. Like, people don't realize that, right? All you need is one, like, executive to sign off on it, and then all of a sudden it's published. And I'm like, dude, there's no actual peer reviewing among, like, university papers. So I don't know why people take, like academia as fact now, you know?
Did you see the news article about the group of professors who were really against the college they were working at, and they just made the most ridiculous articles about gender fluidity, gender identity, and they almost every single one of them got published, and I think they said like 5 of them that they sent in. Somebody like talked to them and said, "Hey, can we use this for our research?" And it was like, "What? We made up everything in there."
It was literally a joke. Like,
yeah,
the crazy thing
they never knew
is that after that stuff was made, for some reason, like, crazy people who want to, like, you know, devalue, like, male and female, like, roles and role models, they're like, oh well, we're gonna like say that like transgenderism is not just in the head, it's like, it's real, right? And I'm just like, listen, like every time I've ever seen somebody like, try to explain it away, they always say, well, look at the brain scans. Even like Neil deGrasse Tyson said, look at the brain scans. And I said, here's the thing, if you give me a brain scan, like I could believe that I'm a cat and act fully like a cat. I'm not a cat. Like,
yeah, it's the same. You take the scan of a 4-year-old kid who believes in Santa Claus, and it's like, wow, they are convinced that Santa Claus is real. But it's weird, it's proven. Santa Claus doesn't exist. I'm sorry for you.
And it like basically goes over not just that, but it goes over like empathy versus factual, right? Which with women it's different. But the thing is that regardless of who you are, there is such a thing as effeminate men, and there is such a thing as emasculate women. They just aren't. They aren't men, and they aren't like they aren't the opposite. They aren't the opposite sex. They just act a little differently from the norm, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But like, if you're gonna try to like, if they're like convinced that they're the opposite, that's not true. Like, here's the thing: even transgender people, like once they've gotten the surgery, have no idea what it's actually like to be a woman. Like, they don't know.
They try to look like what they want to look like as much as possible.
It's like
the surgery does nothing. The surgery does nothing health-wise. It doesn't change anything about them other than looks. It's actually
kind of unhealthy, like, to do that.
Yeah, because it. Oh, what was the Brian Walsh thing?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? The "what is a woman" thing. There was
or Matt Walsh. Yeah.
Yeah, Matt Walsh. I said Brian Walsh. There was a study, and one of the doctors who performed transgender surgeries said, like on his papers, it's a form of rhinoplasty. That's nose. That's a nose job. So that on the medical papers, that's what they have to say because it has nothing to do with health.
Yeah. See, I don't mind like people getting whatever cosmetics they want to get, but like if you're gonna try to dictate to me that I have to call you, basically lie about you, I'm not gonna lie. Like, because like maybe like here's the thing: if someone's just like, I don't messing around and they want to be called like the King of England by me as I'm at a dinner table with them, I'm like, yeah, I don't care, but I'm not gonna go out in like public and like testify like under oath that this person is a woman, right? Because
well, that's. Cosmetic surgery has nothing to do with anybody but yourself.
Yeah.
If you want to get a boob job, then now you want everybody to call you Big Boobs McGee. Nobody has to call you that. Nobody has to call you that. It's it's the same exact logic.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, basically, I had a thing of like, an unbridgeable gap. Like, there's an unbridgeable gap between human and animal life, right? Well, there's also a difference between human life and angelic life, right? Because angels are nowhere said to be made in the image of God.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that's a big thing that our youth group talks about.
Yeah, it's weird though, because when angels like descend to the earth, right, they can take human forms or human-like forms, but they aren't human. Like, they can't be in the same communion with God as we can. We have like a unique relationship.
That's why possession is like, that's the ultimate thing that demons want to do. Yeah. They want a body
because they
want to be us. They want to be us because they hate us.
Yeah, they're jealous of us. That's why. Bunch of jealous.
That's the root people. Of sin.
Demons are the people that are like, come on, man, you guys are so like great. I hate everything about you on Twitter.
Dude, as funny as it is to think about, that's what Lucifer's thing was. Yeah. He didn't think we were worthy of the love that God had.
Yeah. If anything, though, we're more worthy of it because unlike them who couldn't appreciate it, we know what it's like to be without, like, God. Or, like, not without God, but, like, without, with death. Like, we don't, they're in eternity.
You told me that the other night, and that's something I never even thought about. Yeah. But
because we have it hard
you're living with God, right? Yeah. There's no imperfections
Yeah.
in your existence.
Yeah.
You still aren't satisfied.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess God was right. I probably wouldn't love those people as number one either.
And I'm just like, dude, if anything, though, we earned it. Like, you know, if we, like, not that, but, like, you know, Jesus gave it to us through grace because he knows that, like, how hard it is for us, right? He didn't sacrifice himself for the angels, you know? Because he knew it was,
there's
yeah.
I'm agreeing with you, but the idea that we earned it, it should feel like that at least a little bit, because God constantly glorifies the idea of accomplishment. Like there was a challenge and you overcame that challenge.
Yeah.
Said that right. Overcoming challenges and accomplishing goals is talked about throughout the Bible all the time. This sense for adventure and wanting to do something and complete something. Being able to stand at the gates and God saying, yeah,
but even then,
I know
like,
you.
You know, good
you
works
know me.
don't save you, right? But if anything, we've worked way harder than those angels have. You know, those angels have no reason to complain. Like, you know?
100%. That's... Even... good works definitely don't get you into heaven, but the heart changes behavior. So... Yes, James is one I point to all the time. For so many hardships that he had to just deal with.
Yeah.
And his love for God helped him overcome this, and to say going through hardships, keeping God at the center is like an easy task. That would be such a lie. It would be so false. So being proud of the fact that you made it into heaven is totally okay, but it needs to come with grace and gratefulness, and that's the big thing. Being proud of yourself and being overly prideful. Two things. So being proud of an accomplishment, I don't think it's a bad thing.
Well, even I just think of like how people are like, you know, jealous of angels, right? They're like, oh, if I was only like them, you know. And I'm just like, here's the thing, dude. You should be grateful that you're mortal. Like, does that make sense? Like,
oh yeah. Well, that's these people, the angels, lived in heaven, and then they go down. I've never been an angel. I have no idea what decisions I would make, but based on the bad decisions I've made here, I can't say for certain that I'm sticking with God. So, I have no idea. I'm really happy to be a person.
Yeah. No, it's even, like, weird, though, because, in basically Tolkien's work, right, he has, like, a parallel to, like, a creation story. And one of the things that he had is how, basically the angels, or the Ainur in that story, most of them didn't even want to descend onto the earth because it was so beautiful where they were that they didn't want to leave. Right?
Yeah, man.
So I'm just like, you know, that's another thing. And then, like, the satanic figure in that story, right? He basically wanted to create life of his own and rule over things, right? Which I look at Satan, I feel like Satan is more like just jealous of us, but in a way he also wants to rule over us too, you know?
Yeah, he wants to prove that he can do what God can.
Yeah. Like he wanted to be like worshipped.
You know?
You know?
I get what he's saying. Yeah.
So, and also, like, you know, since humanity is uniquely, like, compatible with God, that also means, like, the incarnation is, like, a truly possible thing, you know? Like, because even
absolutely.
though, like, God and humanity are not the same, they're more compatible than anything else, you know?
And he made it that way.
Yeah.
That wasn't on accident.
Yeah, and then even then, like, there's a couple of signs that, like, man is made in the image of God. Man alone has such a variety of facial expressions. Only man has their shame expressing itself specifically in a blush. Mankind alone speaks, and mankind alone possesses personality, morality, and spirituality. Right?
Yeah, that's a great point, because if you were to argue that there's a spirituality to any of the animals on Earth,
yeah,
I don't know, man. You'd have to make a really convincing argument. There is
Yeah.
no way to know that. So why would you try and prove that we're on the same level of it as animals?
Exactly. And then it also says like man will have dominion over like the animals in like verse 28. And I'm just like, if you handle that irresponsibly, that's like a sin, isn't it? Or what kind of would be.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, taking care. That's the thing. People always forget that Adam had duties that he needed to fulfill in the Garden of Eden.
Work,
It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't like he just sat around and and the animals just served him like he was king. He still ate everything for himself. Like he got everything that he needed to eat.
Sitting around watching Heaven Plus on his TV.
Yeah.
He wasn't doing that.
Heaven Plus. No, yeah, it's not like there was a throne for him, or even a house. There was no shelter that he would just stay in and let the earth take care of him. He took care of the earth, and that's I say that Christians might fall short of the responsibility. Like I think as Christians we can definitely forget that we, as much as the earth is for us, we have responsibility over the earth. It's not just this is what we have, so let's do whatever we want with it.
Yeah.
Well, we have responsibility to take care of the earth.
At this point, there's really not much you can do, unfortunately.
No, it's definitely. I'm not talking about being an environmental activist.
Yeah.
But
I'm just like, listen, man, I'm not the one throwing plastic in the ocean. I'm not the one throwing plastic in the ocean.
Exactly, and that's a big thing. Everybody wants to put the blame on the customer instead of the industries. The industries are really what's causing all the pollution.
And even then, I could not even tell you, like, with how many environmental activists there are, the government could literally do a volunteer program where people could just sail out to the ocean on government ships, clean out the oceans. You know how many people would sign up for that? I swear, if I ran for office, that's what I'd do. I'm just like, listen, man, we're gonna clean up these oceans, because I know so many of you want to do it. So you're gonna do it, right? I think the way to get some real change is having somebody. You got to be proud of your country. That's the big thing. So the first thing we need to do in order to make anything better, I think, is to make everybody proud to be an American again. Because I don't see a lot of that now. I think if you want, that's a great idea to just have a voluntary type of thing where it's not signing military, but like once I do this, I made a good decision and I made a good impact. So it's gonna make people feel like their own little hero without having to like complain about something, because that's the only way people feel like a hero now, is that they find something to complain about and that somebody else needs to fix this. Since I've pointed out this issue, I'm a hero. But that's not how the world works. Another thing specifically, if like this, like you mentioned how old this like tablet was, right? So in verse 27, it also says that male and female he created them, right?
Wait, Genesis 4:27?
Or no, Genesis 1:27.
1:27.
So it says male and female he created them, right? So that means that your gender was assigned by God before you were like born, right?
Yeah, that's gonna that line is definitely gonna make some people mad.
We're gonna get canceled on Spotify now.
Oh no.
Oh no.
That's so terrible. That's something that people gotta worry about now.
It's like, dude, it's just my opinion. Like, you don't have to agree with me, you know?
Yeah, you're banning the Bible at that point, right?
Yeah.
We just quoted the Bible. That's all we did.
Exactly. Like, it's not my words, it's God's words, you know?
I think that is the end game for a lot of people, trying to ban the Bible.
Yeah. Because the thing is,
it's
don't
like
what it says.
Well, it's like they don't think about what this country is built on.
Even then, like in the original founding fathers' letters, like it literally says that the rights intended in the Constitution were intended for a moral and religious people.
Mm-hmm. That's what the United States was built on, man.
Yeah.
There was religious persecution in Europe.
Yeah.
We went over to follow God.
Yeah.
That is, you can say Protestant, Catholic, or whatever.
Yeah.
The Pilgrims went here to follow
No,
God.
but even then, like, I'm thinking
that is
about
what they were doing.
right? And I'm just basically, like, according to the founding fathers' ideas, if you aren't a moral and religious person, or at least as much as you try to be, we could just take your rights away. I'm not saying do it. I'm just saying, like... If anything, you know what that means? That means all the slave owners would lose their rights, and all the slaves would gain their rights. You know, because they were more religious than the owners were. Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah.
That's a crazy thing to think about.
Yeah.
The same people that said, the government can't tell you what to follow and believe in, were the same people that said peaceful and great nation belongs to people who believe in something and have moral values.
It didn't say like, you know, it didn't say like just Christian. You know, it said moral and religious. So that could mean like so moral and religious, I assume means no Satanists, you know? Right? Like no human sacrifice.
Moral and religious means we have Constitution, states will make their own laws.
Yeah.
As long as your religion doesn't go against the laws created in the Constitution of your state.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
But I think what's interesting is it does say religious specifically. It says moral and religious.
Yeah.
I think a big problem with anxiety and suicide comes with a lack of purpose.
Yeah.
This idea that atheists and agnostics are really pushing is that you can't know anything, man.
Yeah.
There's no way to tell anything, so you might as well not believe in anything.
And even then, like,
and
people who don't believe in anything,
it's a rough place to be.
People who have the highest suicide rates in the country.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the people who have moral guidelines, not just Christians. Anybody who has moral guidelines and just religious views, period. Mm-hmm. They live happier lives.
Yeah.
Somebody who doesn't believe in anything and has no moral background, they have no reason to be good, they have no reason to be bad.
Exactly.
They're just existing. To themselves, they are the monkey. They are the monkey.
Go into a zoo, you monkey.
Oh, man.
Okay, that's kind of messed up. I'm gonna have to cut that out. I wasn't being racist, I promise.
It sounded so much worse than what you meant it to be.
Exactly, that's not what I meant. I'm gonna keep that in, and if I get a complaint, I'll remove it, but because that's funny. That's funny.
We'll tread lightly. Lightly.
So let's see what else I got for chapter 1. Oh yeah, so it also says like man has a job to be fruitful and multiply, right? So like
really talking about the monkeys.
Yeah. So I'm like, here's the thing: sex is a good thing, like originally, right?
Yeah. Where are you going with this?
And well, like, here's the thing: the reason that he created it was not like simply about multiplying, though, right? It was made to like contribute to the bonding of like a one flesh relationship, and I have reasons for that. Because compared to like animal sex, like human sex is different entirely. So they have, first of all, humans have it in private, right? Animals will do it literally out in the open. Like you could see 2 deer like having fun with each other in the middle of the road.
Not consensually is very popular.
Yeah. Also, humans
rape
have
is
secondary...
kind of the only way they do it in the animal kingdom.
Yeah.
Pretty bad.
So only in humans do actually women develop breasts before they give birth, right? Animals, They don't gain that before they give birth, right? Animals only gain it after. So,
Yeah. Uh, if this was written to the animals, it would say be and multiply.
yeah.
There's no be fruitful.
Yeah.
It's just be and multiply.
And also, only humans
It's their only
actually
reason for existence.
generate, or like only humans demonstrate like an interest in sex, while animals do it randomly. Like, it's weird.
Hmm?
And then in humans, like the duration is longer and the pleasure is stronger. I'm just reading this from a source. I'm not like I don't know this.
I was gonna say, did this man take like notes on this? Is this?
Yeah. Like watching two people. I'm like, what are you
He's
feeling right
studying
now?
this.
What are you feeling right now, guys? I need to. I'm getting
He's
these
got them
notes
in
for a
like a
Bible podcast.
psychology room.
Yeah. Uh,
They're
and
they're
then
in a
only
shrink
humans
room
actually
on that
continue to
couch.
have sex after fertility. And then none of those things are actually required for reproduction at all. They're only for bonding purposes. So
Yeah, spiritual and mental health, man.
yeah. So then oh yeah, I guess that's it for chapter 1 actually. I think that's all the notes I have. So
And we are so good at going through things fast.
yeah. See, like I feel like though this chapter was like definitely really interesting. One of the things that my favorite passage personally was the part where it says like let us make mankind in our image and our likeness so that they may rule over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky. Like all of that like uniqueness towards man is like something that's really like awesome from God. You know, that's my favorite passage. So, definitely like that one.
Oh yeah, I think because I've read Genesis quite a lot, and I'm
Mhm.
sure you have.
Yeah.
That's whenever I start to read the Bible, I always start at
Uh-huh.
Genesis. So I've read this quite a lot, and for whatever reason, um, the first paragraph about him hovering over the waters and there just being darkness, right, and just the earth being just water,
Yeah.
right. That really stuck out to me this time about how God and gravity is like the start of everything.
Yeah.
everything happens around time and space, and that idea of time existing because something was made,
Yeah.
such an abstract way, but I think an easier way to think about it.
Yeah.
When somebody makes anything, right?
Yeah.
You've got a chair that somebody is making. It was first a tree.
Yeah.
You have to cut down that tree, and then you get the wood and you make the chair.
And then God made it out of nothing. Like, you know, God didn't Yeah.
Yes. That's the crazy thing. There's no there's no before when there comes to what we have, right?
Yeah.
Even before the tree,
Mm-hmm.
it was a seed. And then if there was another tree that dropped
Yeah.
dropped the sapling, right?
Yeah. And even then in
There
Genesis,
is no
like all of the trees like
four.
seemed like they came about full grown. And they just had seeds in them. So
There has to be. I love the what came first, the chicken or the egg?
yeah.
The chicken.
Yeah.
Easily. It's there's no question.
Yeah.
Even the idea of evolution, right? The chicken had to come first.
Yeah.
There was there was no way that an egg formulated from a single cell organism and then hatched on its own and fended for itself. That that it's just not. That's not how anything works.
No, and even then, evolution, I'm just like, listen, man, the platypus. How does that happen?
Oh yeah.
Right?
There's no beaver and like manatee
Yeah.
just having some weird thoughts.
Weird, like, waterland,
That-
weird waterland intercourse there, you know?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
think about that. Any other time when like a lion and a tiger
Yeah.
happened, the famous liger,
Yeah.
it was a man-made experiment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The ligers don't exist in the wild. Lions and tigers tend to fight or leave each other alone.
But like, what I was also thinking of is like, okay, this is kind of off topic, but a platypus, right? They have milk and they have eggs, which means they're a portable source of omelets.
have not heard that before, and I'm definitely going to use that. This is a new platypus joke that I have not heard yet.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I know Genesis 2, I'm sure, like, will probably not take as long as Genesis 3. Genesis 3 might take a while, for sure. Because
That's we're not trying to do Genesis 3 tonight, are we?
No, we aren't. But that one might take
Okay.
a little longer, because that's the one where, like, Satan, like, comes in the garden and stuff. So
Yeah. I'll do some notes on my own for that next one. I'll probably start some notes tomorrow.
So
Read through that.
with that said, we're gonna go into Genesis 2 in the next episode. So I'm pretty sure I'll release this one on Saturday, probably. I'm guessing, and then Wednesday I'll release the next one, which we'll record right after this one. So anyway, also guys, don't forget, if you are listening to this on whatever website you're listening to it on, we have other options too. So we should have Spotify up soon. We should also have, I think, Amazon. I applied for the Amazon thing, Amazon Music, so we'll get that.
Crossing our fingers.
Yeah.
Crossing our fingers.
And then iTunes I know we'll get. You just have to do one episode in order to get iTunes. Spotify we already have. So, yep, I hope you guys will see us on that platform, and I'll see you in the next episode. Say goodbye, Gage.
All right. Bye. God bless.
Peace. God bless you.